In this part of the tutorial, we're going to finish up these rims, and we're also going to take a look how to quickly add them as well as a tire to our car. These are most likely going to be the rims we're going to be using, since these are the lowest poly rims we've made so far. The rest of the rims are a bit too high poly to fit the quality of our car, because our car is low poly. We really should have low poly rims as well. So most likely we're going to be using these rims, so I'm going to show you how to add these rims to our car just as we have them right here, as well as make a very simple tire that fits nicely with our rim. This should be the result that we have at the end of this tutorial. We will fill in the center, and if you want to, you can bring these in slightly so it's not such a jagged edge. I'll show you how to do that, as well as make the bolts and the center cap. So we're going to open up the file that we left off with, and we're going to press tab to go into edit mode. We're going to alt right click and press 3 for side view, Z for wireframe, and we're going to press E to extrude, right click to cancel, and we're going to bring this back. We're going to do S, X, and then 0 to zero it out on the X axis. We're going to bring this back fairly far. The distance on the real rim between here and the bottom is actually fairly large. So something like this may be appropriate. Then we can press 3 for side view, Z for wireframe, E to extrude, right click to cancel, S to scale this down. We just want to scale this down far enough so that it's going to have enough area for this circle. So we're just trying to scale it beyond where this circle is. Similar to our other rim, this is going to be that area that the cap rests on. So now we're going to press 3 to go to side view. We're going to create that circle, which is going to make this cut for this circle. So we're going to go to create. We're going to do circle. For this I decided to use 10 vertices, so we're going to press 10 and then press enter. Then we're going to do R, Y, 90 and press enter. S to scale this down. And then bring it straight up on the x-axis, and then S to scale it to be a bigger size. One thing that I tried to do in my other model, and I would like to try again, is to make sure that this vertex and this vertex meet up perfectly with these two vertices here. So we can grab it on the z-axis, hold control, and snap it to this point. And you'll probably see that they don't match up perfectly, so just zoom in and then do S to scale and try to match them up as perfectly as possible. And then if you want, you can do G and then Z, hold control and snap it again to that point just to see how close you can get it to this point. So they both should be essentially on top of each other. Right now, all those points should be on top of each other. So with that done, we actually want to move this circle a little bit away from our model so that the cut will be done properly. And we're also going to need this to be a separate object. We made it in the same object as our rim. To make it a separate object, with this selected, press P. And it says separate, and we want to separate our selection, so we're going to choose selection. And now you'll see it in red, which means it's now a separate object. And it's also selected. That's what the red color means, is that this is selected, which is exactly what we need in order to use the knife project tool. So we're going to press 3 to go to side view. You can do Z for wireframe, or you can leave it like this. And then we're going to go to Tools, and knife project, and we want it to cut through, so we're going to put a check mark on cut through. And now we can take a look at what we have here. So what we may need to do is merge these vertices together if they're not merged, because we had those two on top of each other. But I'm going to just try pressing I to see what happens and do a small inset here. I think my model is actually going to be fine. I don't think I have two overlapping vertices, although it's possible that I do. And then we're going to press E to extrude, right click to cancel, S, X, and then 0. Press enter, drag it back. At this point we can hide the circle, so we can press tab, select the circle and press H, select your rim and press tab. I'm just going to go through and make sure that these vertices are in fact only one vertex. And I'm guessing since that one side was correct, that this side is correct, and it is. So part of the reason we're getting this bad shading is we actually have two vertices that are directly on top, or directly below each other, because we never scaled this inner part in. So from side view, these vertices, these top vertices and these bottom vertices, they have the same exact values for the Z and Y axis. They're only different on the X axis. So when we scaled it to 0 on the X axis, we made sure that we now have extra points on top of each other, or at least close to each other, down here at the bottom, and that's part of the reason the shading is all bad. So what we want to do is go to edge select and select this edge. You'll know it's the correct edge because it goes all the way to the top. And then we want to select this vertex because that's the one that was part of that edge. And we're going to select this vertex as well, and then do Alt M at last. So we merged it from here to here. And we want to do the same over here. Back to edge select, get the correct edge, the one that goes all the way. Back to vertex select, select these two vertices, Alt M at last. Now we want to get rid of these edges, so we're going to select these two edges, do delete, dissolve edges, back to vertex select. And I think we actually want to get rid of these edges as well, if we can. Although I think if we do this, yeah, it's going to get rid of that vertex. So we're going to undo that with Control Z for now. And we actually can just connect these two, so just press J to join these two. And this one maybe, yeah, we can just delete that one. So just do delete dissolve edges on that one, and you can do the same on this one now that there's a new connection. And then we want to select this vertex, shift select this one, J to join. That's going to complete the circle there. And then select these two, J to join, that'll complete the circle there. I think that's mostly it for the cleanup work on that part. We could, if we wanted to, get rid of this endgun by running an edge loop all the way around, or we could just select this one and press J to join. That's probably what we're going to do in order to get rid of that. And I'm just going to make sure smooth shading's turned on. And then I'm going to select these inside faces. If you go to side view by pressing 3, it'll be easier to select these circular ones. And then do I to inset, and just do a small inset to help correct the shading on the bottom there. And I think I want to try just adding a loop cut here actually. So if we get rid of these edges by just doing delete dissolve edges and then add a loop cut here, I just want to see if that helps improve the shading or not, because we did seem to have some shading issues here, and we still actually have some shading issues. So I think I may undo that and go back to what we had. So now what we're going to do is do more cleanup. We're going to get rid of some of these vertices that we don't need. From here to here is a straight shot, so we know this one and this one are the ones we need, so we can get rid of this one by merging it over with Alt-M at last, and do the same down here. Just use Shift-R if you want to use the repeat command. And I'm going to merge these this way, just to make sure that this stays as a quad. It's going to get rid of those. And I'm going to join these two. And I'm probably going to join these two. And then perhaps these two. And get rid of this edge by doing delete dissolve edges. And that looks okay. Not fantastic shading on the inside, but I think once we get this loop around, it may help a bit. So we're going to fix some of these endguns too. Just select a couple points, J to join until you have quads or triangles. We can get rid of this one here, this edge, by deleting it, and then create some more connections by doing J to join. And this one probably will just have to have a triangle in here. Everything else looks fine as long as you have triangles and quads. It's not too important where they're connected. So that looks good. To correct some of the shading, we should run a edge loop around here. To do that, we're just going to press 3 to go to side view. And all we have to do is make an edge loop from about here, or from here, all the way around to the other connection point, which would be here. And then we can duplicate and rotate again, and it will automatically be transferred to all the other spokes, as well as this hole will be transferred to all the other appropriate areas. So we're going to do a knife cut over to here. So we're going to do K for the knife cut tool, left click on this edge, drag it across as many edges as you can without interfering with the circle. So over here is going to be good, then left click, and then drag it across all these edges and left click and press enter. So now we can alt right click on this. And before we do anything, I actually want to get rid of these 2 points. So we're going to select these two, alt M at center, and then alt right click, then Q and E. And this will bring this line a little closer. I'm just looking at the vertices to see. Oh, it actually didn't go over. But anyway, what I was looking at is the fact that these 2 points can actually be connected. So I can select this one and then do Alt M at last and possibly improve how things look. So we can do Alt right click, then Alt and Shift right click, Q then E, and actually we want to deselect these and then do Q and E and bring this relatively close. We're going to have to adjust this one by itself. Just do G twice. And we can adjust this one as well. And adjust this one. And adjust this one. These may not line up because I had to adjust each of these individually, but I'm hoping that they do in fact line up. So now that we look at this, it looks a little bit better, but we have actually some... I think this shading though is actually because of the fact that this is an endgun. So for now I'm going to save this, go to File, Save. And the next part is to duplicate and rotate this section that we now corrected with this circle as well. So we're going to Alt right click on this part. We can deselect all the pieces that we don't need, or all the vertices that we don't need. And shift select this vertex and the rest of these vertices actually. And before we do that, I actually noticed there's an endgun right here, so I'm going to select these two, J to join, select these two, J to join. So now we have to do the selection process again. Just Alt right click, C for circle select, middle mouse deselect, select the rest of these. And we need to do the same over here. Alt shift right click. And then select the rest of these down here. And then Alt shift right click and Alt shift right click over here, so that we have the two other separation lines. Then we can do H to hide. Select one of these points, select linked, H to hide, A to select all, delete vertices. So make sure you save it before you do this so you don't lose anything. I already saved it, so just do delete vertices, Alt H to unhide, 3 for side view, switch to 3D cursor, Shift S cursor to center just to make sure it's in the center, Shift D R72, press enter. Shift R, Shift R, Shift R, A twice, W, and remove doubles. And hopefully, if everything went okay, and it doesn't look like it did, but that's fine. So these points are the ones I was worried about, these 2 points right here. So just select one, shift select the other, Alt M at last. And you're going to have to do that around the model because things did not line up as correctly as I was hoping. So you are going to have to merge them together so that everything works out the way it's supposed to. So it's the one to the left of this circle, and then it's to the left of this circle, and then it's above this circle, to the right of this circle, and to the bottom of this circle. Just merge them with each other. That should be good. And you can double check your lines if you want to make sure that everything else is lining up properly. And I think one problem we may have is that this vertex here, I thought it actually cut onto this line, but it didn't. So if we move it, we can see we have a gap. And we don't want that gap. So we're just going to do, we can do Control R, left click, right click, Control R, left click, right click. And we're going to do that around this entire thing here. And then I think this one's correct. Yeah, this one looks like it's correct. So we can select this one and this one, J to join. And select this one and this one, J to join. This would have been a little easier to do before we rotated, but I didn't realize that it was actually a problem. Because for whatever reason, this one on the right side was done correctly. It actually cut onto that line the way it was supposed to. But this one on the left side did not, because you can see when we move it, it's not physically connected to this other part like it's supposed to be. So now I'm just going to select this one and this one, Alt-M at last, and you can reposition these other points with Q if you want, or you can leave them right where they were, but I think I'm probably going to reposition them a little. And do the same here, merge those together, and then reposition these points. Repeat the process, just merge and reposition. And then merge and reposition. And merge, reposition, and this should be the last one. So that's looking a lot better. We don't really have any major problems up in this area. There is some shading that is not amazing in this area. And I'm just going to try snapping this point on the x-axis to see if that will help at all. But I don't think that was the problem. So we're just going to save it real quick. To fix this sort of jagged edge that we have right here, we can select these points that are part of the problem. Just make sure you're doing it in wireframe mode so you get the ones that are down here too. Once you have all of them selected like this, you can switch it to 3D cursor and then do Shift X to ignore the x-axis and scale it in slightly until you have a better shape that you're more happy with, and just repeat the process until you have a curve that you are more satisfied with. It's not technically going to be a circle anymore, but it is going to look a little nicer because it doesn't have that jagged edge to it. So to make this the cap that goes on it, what we can do is go to Face Select, and it was this edge that was for the symmetry or the rotation that we were using. So we're going to select all the faces in between those symmetry areas. So we're going to select these faces here, all the way over to this one. That should be the correct area. So we want to select all these, and we can do Shift E, right click to cancel, and bring them out slightly. And this will be part of that, the cap part. We can just rotate it around. But before we do that, I want the cap to be a little bit smaller so that it would actually be able to physically fit into this area. So we're going to do Control R and then drag this up, just so it's a little bit lower than the original edge, and then do Control R, drag this up, and do a similar distance on this side as you have on this side. And then you want to be in edge select and select these outer edges. So I selected that one. I'm going to Alt Shift and right click to get this whole edge. Then do delete and choose vertices. Then we can select one of these edges, do select linked. 3 for side view, should still be in 3D cursor. Shift D, R72, and press enter. Shift R, Shift R, Shift R. A twice, W, remove doubles. Select one of these edges, do select linked. And this gets our whole cap area. E to extrude, right click to cancel, and drag this up. The cap is probably approximately that thick, maybe a little bit less. Something like that. So that would be our little cap area right here. But we're actually not going to need these faces on the inside, so we're going to go to face select, alt right click to get these interior faces, delete, choose faces, and then go to vertex select, alt right click, press F to make a face here. We're going to do select linked, shift H to hide everything else, and we can make a face on this back side too by alt right clicking and pressing F. This is just in case someone wants to take the cap off of our model. You'll have a back side as well as a front side. You could just leave this, or all these bottom vertices. You could actually delete them if you wanted to, or you can leave them so that it's more realistic. And then one more thing we want to do is press 3 for side view, and we're going to select all these outer vertices on the outer ring, and we're going to do select inverse to get the reverse. And this piece is actually slightly curved forward some. If you want, you could leave the back side flat. It probably is flat. So if you go to front view by pressing 1, and then you do Z for wireframe, B for box select, middle mouse to deselect, that should hopefully deselect the back side. And then you can curve this out some, because I think it does have a bit of a curve. It's just a small curve. And you can press tab to go back to object mode and get a better look of what we have here. So this looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this. The only thing left to add really is these bolts that go here. So we're going to press 3 and tab, alt H to unhide everything, A to deselect. Go to create, choose circle, change it to 6 vertices, R, Y, then 90, S to scale it down, Z for wireframe, bring it up, S to scale it down some more, but actually we want this to be on median point. So if you accidentally scaled it while it was not a median point, do Control Z, switch it to median point, and then do your scaling. And reposition it until it's approximately the same size as the bolt in this reference. Bring it back on the x-axis so it's more in position. E to extrude, right click to cancel. Then you can do G and then X. Hold Control and snap it to one of these bottom vertices. That'll make sure that it's even on the x-axis with the back of this. Alt right click on this top part, F to make a face, Control B, mouse wheel up once, and then left click to confirm. Select this point, shift select this point, J to join. Let's do select linked and 3 for side view. I don't think I remembered to snap this to make sure it's centered, so we're going to grab it on the Z-axis, hold control, and you can snap it to probably this point here. I believe that should be the center of this circular area. And if you want to, now that we're done with it, you can do R30 and press enter so that this one is facing straight up and down, and you can actually delete this connection and then reconnect it so that it's straight up and down like that too, just for making it look nicer. And now the only thing left to do is to duplicate and rotate this, so do select linked, 3 for side view, change it to 3D cursor, Shift D, R72, press enter, Shift R, and Shift R, and I'm going to do A to deselect, and then Tab. I had this problem on the last one where it looked like the bolt was too small. That's just my opinion, it looks like the bolt is too small to me. So we're going to select one vertex on all the bolts and do select linked. We want to change this to individual origins so that they're all scaling based on their own boundaries. Then we want to do S, Shift X, so that they're not scaling on the X-axis. And then scale them out until you are satisfied with the size. I think that's probably a little more appropriate, maybe a bit too big, so I'm going to just adjust this until I get something I'm a little happier with. I think that is probably okay. So we're just going to save this. And now that we are essentially done with the rim, this low poly rim or lower poly rim, it's not super low poly, but it's low poly enough, I believe, for our purposes. So the next thing would be to try to get this onto our car. So we're going to do Shift D to duplicate, right click to cancel, press M. That's going to bring up the Move to Layer box. And our car is on this layer, so we're going to left click on this layer. And that's going to bring our duplicated rim onto this first layer, so we're going to left click on this layer, and now you'll see that our rim is right here. It's good to duplicate it first because then you still have this one here, which is still lined up with your reference image. And as you can see, this rim on the first layer needs to be scaled down to be able to match our car. So it's good to leave this one here because it's going to be still at the same size as our reference image. And this one's going to be scaled down, so we wouldn't be able to use it as easily to make changes if we needed to. So now we're going to press Tab, press A twice to select everything, S to scale this down. Just make sure you're on median point, and then scale it down. Before we move this, it's going to be easier to make a tire so that it's centered as well as the rim is centered. So we're just going to press Tab to go into object mode and create a cylinder. You can leave it at the default 32 vertices. Go to Tools, turn Smooth Shading on. Tab into Edit mode. R, Y, and then 90, press enter. S and then X to scale this down to make it more like a tire, and then S to scale it down to be more like this. You can adjust the width of this later if you want. There's typically a bevel on each of these edges, so we're going to select this face by going to face select, select this face, and then shift right click to get this face. Control B to make a bevel, mouse wheel up once, and then left click, and then we're going to select this face again, shift select this face, S and then X, and drag it in a little. The typical curvature of a tire is it will go over and down a bit, and eventually it will start curving back in. So it would be more like this. That's what we're trying to recreate, is something that's more like that. So you should have something like this. And to do that, we were just doing S and then X to bring these two faces closer to each other. Then we're going to press delete, choose faces, and then A to select everything. And we're actually just going to bring this back some. And press 3 for side view and scale this up some until this center edge is maybe a little bit bigger than the rim itself. And then we can snap it on the x-axis to the rim. And at this point I'm going to select the rim, tab into edit mode, and bring it out slightly until you can no longer see the tire. I actually think we need to scale the tire up some, so I'm going to scale it up some. And I believe that has helped to solve part of the problem. It looks a lot nicer at this point. Just double check, make sure nothing is sticking through. Like, you don't want part of the tire sticking through the rim. But it should look similar to this once you're done. And if you want to, you can alt right click on these edges and just do S, Shift X, and scale these out slightly to make the tire tread area a little bigger, if that's what you want to do. So that looks pretty good to me, just a lot of minor adjustments there until you get something you're happy with. We can join these two together, so we can select the tire, shift select the rim, Control J to join them, and now when we press tab they're all one object. So if we press A twice and drag this over and then drag it back, in order to make sure that it's close to this edge, we're going to drag it on the x-axis, hold control and snap it to this point, and then bring it back slightly, and then we can do 3 for side view. And in order to line this up better, we're going to hide this image. So left click on this eye, go to the top and left click on this one which says right view. This has a picture of where the wheel is supposed to be as well as the rim in comparison. So we can scale this down, use G to move it into place, and then scale it up some. And it should roughly fit the size of the rim as well as the tire. So you should have something like this. And I think I actually need to bring mine forward some, so I'm going to bring mine forward and snap it to one of these vertices. So I think that turned out pretty good. So now you just want to do the same inside on the back view, or the back. Just do 3 for side view, tab to edit mode, shift D to duplicate, right click to cancel, and bring this back. You can do wireframe if you want and try to match it up with the reference. And you may want to snap it again on the x-axis to this point, because sometimes the back of the car is a little bit further out than the front of the car. So just to make sure that it's snapped to the correct point, you just want to do it again just to be safe. So now we have this side, and in order to get them on this side, we could either add a mirror modifier, or we can join them to the car, and that will automatically add the mirror modifier since the car has a mirror modifier. So I'm going to shift select the car. So both of these are selected. This should be red, this should be orange, and then do Control J. That's going to join them together, and it's also going to mirror the wheel as well as the rim onto the other side. So now you have your completed rim. You have an extremely basic tire. And you have your rim as well as the wheel positioned according to the car. So now that we are happy with this, we can just go to File and Save.